Hey guys, Castar here with another video for you. Today's deck profile is going to be one of my Kagero decks, my updated Dragonic Overlord the End build. I think I probably put it up a while, had some kinks in it that I worked out, plus I got the rest of the cards I needed with the new release of set 11 a couple months ago. So I figured I'd show it to you guys again, completed this time. This build may be a little familiar to you guys because it's based off of the build that won the World Nationals last year, or at least placed in the top, I think. And it is basically focused around getting Dauntless Drive Dragon for Break Ride, and then getting as many Overlord the Ends in hand as possible, or as quickly as possible, whether it's drawing through your deck or whether it's discarding cards from hand to draw using cycling skills. So getting started, starting Vanguard is Red Pulse Draco Kid. He's the grade 3 searcher for Kagero. When you counterblast one and put him in Soul, and you look at the top 5 cards for a grade 3 Kagero unit, and you put it in your hand, and then you shuffle the deck. Trigger setup. I'm actually surprised that this setup works good the way that it does, because I used to think that, especially with all the standing you do with your Vanguard, that running all crits was the best idea because of the fact that it would put as much pressure on as possible, and you're just going to keep checking critical triggers, so you can place them on your Vanguard stand, and then you're hitting for +5 and a crit, or more than that. But I changed it up a little, run 4 heal triggers, 4 Tar critical trigger, 4 Gatling Claw draw trigger, and then I run 2 copies of Seal Dragon Biella for another critical trigger, and then 2 copies of Seal Dragon Art Peak for 2 more draw triggers. So it's essentially 4 heals, 6 crit, 6 draw. And I like this a lot better because it allows you to draw through the deck, have plenty in hand without losing any sort of power, really. There's 6 crits are really enough, especially if you're getting all your draws, which you usually will, and dropping cards and going through the deck with the various skills of all the grade 1s and such in the build. I specifically suggest that you run Gatling Claw at 4 for your draw trigger, because of his Counterblast 1 Soul Charge to retire grade 0. Because if you draw into him when you're going up against an opponent that has a deck that either relies on its starter or keeps its starter out there for most of the game, or if you draw into him early and you're going up against a deck that relies on its starter, you can use his skill without really losing much because he's only a 4k booster and a 5k shield, and get rid of their starter and possibly screw up their game pretty bad for the rest of the match, so that you don't have to worry about them getting that skill later. For grade 1s, I run 4 perfects, 4 Embodiment of Armor Bar, the 8k vanilla, 3 copies of Seal Dragon Kersey, and 2 copies of Flame of Hope Airmo, and then 1 copy of Dragon Monk Gojo. Bar, great ride. I run Seal Dragon Rhino Cross for my perfect, just because he's cheaper. He's half the price of Bari, though Bari, in my opinion, still looks better. I actually traded for an entire Seal Dragon deck, traded off my Baris, and you'll notice one of my Dragonic Overlord the Ends is missing. I ordered it online to get my playset back, and it still hasn't got here yet, but I wanted to go ahead and make the video anyways for you guys, so you'll see him kind of proxied in here. But I basically traded all of that for a Seal Dragon deck because to be honest, the end deck is really expensive Draconic Overlord the End is still $35 to $40, and Dauntless Drive Dragon is also about $35 to $40. So if you can skimp on the perfects instead of getting Bari, who's nice and pretty and classic, and getting Rhino Cross instead, go for it. I mean, perfect guards are perfect guards. I run Kersey because it's a great card. Doesn't require you to have a Seal Dragon Vanguard, so you can run it outside of the Seal Dragon deck. His skill is that you choose a card from your hand and discard it when he is placed on rear guard, and if your opponent has a grade 2 card on the field. And if you do that, if they have a grade 2 on the field and you place this card, you can discard a card from your hand and draw, so he cycles one card whenever he's placed, as long as the opponent has some type of grade 2 on the field. I run one Gojo because I feel like he's not as good as Seal Dragon Kersey is, but he is good and still effective in the sense that if you ride him on turn 1, you're not going to get your drive check, so you can rest him, discard to draw, so you still get that draw in. And he's also effective because of the fact that you can place him behind Vanguard or something. Something like Burning Horn or something that's a 12k attacker, you know, something that doesn't really need a booster to still hit, and you can rest him for his skill and still get that cycle draw if you really need it. So Kersey's good for a one-time cycle, but Gojo can consistently cycle. Though, since you do have to rest him, I feel like running Kersey is better, especially for early game. So that's why I run it at more copies, so that way you don't lose the pressure early game trying to search for your break ride or the ends or whatever you need. And then Flame of Hope Airmo, I run at 2 copies. His skill is when he boosts an attack that hits, then you can discard a card and draw a card. I like to place him behind Vanguard specifically if I can, because of the fact that so you're using Dauntless Drive Dragon and you haven't broke ride yet, you can when you hit, you can discard a card and try and draw into something you need, like the end, or another copy of the end if you already have your ride in hand for break ride. And if you are at, say you do get the break ride off, as long as you keep hitting with his skill and you keep getting Airmo's skill, you can still discard, draw, and search out the Persona Blast for Draconic Overlord the End before you actually have to choose to do the skill. So if you say you hit with the end, but you don't have the Persona Blast, you can discard one card with Airmo's skill and hopefully draw into the Persona Blast. So going for the grade 2s, the lineup is pretty simple. The deck that placed in the World Nationals, it ran 10 grade 2s, and just so we could run an extra grade 1, but I feel like the deck is kind of pressured for attacking cards, so although it's nice to just lay on Vanguard the whole time, I think it's personally more effective if you drop the extra grade 1 and just run 11 grade 2s like you would in any normal deck. So here's the lineup. I have one shiny Dragonite Nahalem from BTO1, just because I like to run all shinies. Pretty much every grade 2 I have is a rare, so it's got foil, looks nice. So I have 3 Hungry Hell Dragon, and then 1 Dragonite Nahalem for my 4 10k vanillas. 1 copy of Bellicosti Dragon, because he's actually not that necessary to make the deck run. And if you're cycling through cards the way you should be, you might see him eventually, and then you just gotta protect him until it's not worth it to keep him anymore. I run 3 Berserk Dragons, just because the retiring effect is nice, and just being able to have that option is nice, so you want to see him a lot. The deck build that I based this off of, like I said, dropped a grade 2 to run an extra grade 1. He ran 2 Gojos instead of 1 like me, and he dropped an extra Berserk Dragon, which I can understand because the Counterblast 2 is kind of expensive when you're considering if you do the starter's skill, Red Pulse Draco Kid, excuse me. His skill costs you Counterblast 1, and then you can only get maybe 1 Berserk Dragon and 1 Dragonic Overlord at the end if you're not getting any unflips or heals or anything like that. But I run Berserk Dragon at 3 copies just because I think that that's still okay. It works fine. I haven't had a problem with it anyways. Then I run 3 copies of Burning Horn Dragon, the 12k attacker. He gets plus 3,000 if you have an Overlord Vanguard. So he's really good for after you ride past Break Ride, because then you get that 12k attack, and then you can put Gojo or something behind him, or Airmo, just anything low powered, because your boosters are pretty low powered, so you do need that extra boost. Grade 3s, of course, it's probably pretty obvious at this point. 4 copies of Dauntless Drive Dragon, and then 4 copies of Dragonic Overlord the End. Like I said, as you can see, I am missing a copy currently right now because it still hasn't gotten to me in the mail yet. Dauntless Drive Dragon is the Break Ride card. His Break Ride skill is that when a Kagero unit rides this unit, your Vanguard gets plus 10,000, and he gains the auto skill that you can choose 3 cards from your hand and discard them, and at the end of the battle that this unit attacked, if the unit has not become stood during that turn, you may pay the cost and stand the unit. So say you miss with Dragonic Overlord at the end, they perfect guarded or whatever, you can still discard 3 cards and stand up again anyways and go for that extra attack, try to hit his skill. Something I didn't learn until recently when I was playing with this against somebody else who knew a little more about the card than I did, is that even if you hit with Dragonic Overlord at the end, you can still do Dauntless Drive Dragons to go first if you're going for that 2-time stand. I would always do that unless you feel like they're going to block it the next time, but then with Dragonic Overlord the End skill, you can always go and hit rear guard instead or whatever if you see they're pressured for guarding and you want the stand anyways, especially since you're going to be hitting for a high number. Dragonic Overlord the End's main skill, because we're not running cross ride, so we don't have to worry about his 13k base, because that's not going to happen. You Counterblast 2 and discard a copy of Dragonic Overlord the End from your hand, so Persona Blast, and when his attack hits, you may stand him. So basically, the game-winning play is to Break Ride with Dragonic Overlord the End on Dauntless Drive Dragon, have 2 copies in your hand so you can ride with 1 and then keep 1 for Persona Blast. Discard 3 for his skill, whether you hit or miss, stand, and then hopefully hit again and do Overlord the End's Persona Blast. And now, hopefully you guys can see how the deck build works on basically cycling and getting rid of or drawing into as many cards as possible so that you don't miss riding Break Ride first, and so that you can get hopefully as many copies of Dragonic Overlord in your hand as you need. And once you have enough of either of these, you can start using those effects to drop them from hand so that you're not losing guarding and draw into hopefully better cards to either play or guard with. It's a really nice deck. It really fills out the field nicely, and if you are having a tough game, unless it's just a really bad day for you to be playing the deck and your luck is just not going your way at all, usually you will be able to drop stuff from hand and draw into what you need. So very consistent, very powerful. I've never lost with this deck, not since I've put it together. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you can afford it, I hope you build it, because it's really fun, really good deck. And like and subscribe below, and leave any comments on the video or about any other videos you'd like to see.